Imagine checking your phone during breakfast and seeing a text from your bank that says your account has been temporarily restricted. Your coffee is still warm, your toast is still on the plate, and suddenly none of that matters. Your heart starts racing. Your Social Security deposit just landed a few days ago, and now you're wondering whether that money is still there, whether someone got into your account, or whether you did something wrong without even realizing it. You call the number on the back of your card, and you're placed on hold, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember every purchase you've made in the last week. If this has ever happened to you, or if you've simply worried that it might, you're about to understand exactly why banks do this, what's really happening behind the scenes, and what you can do to get your money back in your hands as quickly as possible. Here's something that might surprise you. When a bank freezes or restricts an account, it's very often not because anyone actually did anything wrong. In many cases, it's simply a computer program noticing that your spending doesn't look like your usual spending, and reacting to protect you before it even knows whether there's a real problem. That distinction matters, because it changes how you should feel about the whole situation. This isn't your bank accusing you of a crime. It's more like a very cautious guard dog barking at a delivery truck it doesn't recognize yet, even though the truck is perfectly friendly. Before we go further, if you find videos like this one helpful, especially ones that walk you through real situations retirees run into with banks, scams, and everyday money decisions, consider subscribing to Retiree's Guide. We post new videos like this every week, and it genuinely helps more people see them when you do. Let's stay with that breakfast table scenario for just a moment longer, because the details matter. Maybe it's a Tuesday morning, nothing special planned, and you're getting ready to head to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription. You go to pay, and the card reader flashes red. The person behind you in line shifts their weight, and you feel your face get warm with embarrassment even though you've done absolutely nothing wrong. That embarrassment is real, and it's worth naming, because a lot of people describe this moment as feeling almost like being accused of something in public, even when no one around them has any idea what's actually happening. Understanding what's going on behind that red light can turn that embarrassment into something much closer to mild annoyance. And that shift alone makes the whole experience easier to handle. Now let's talk about why this happens in the first place, because understanding the why is going to make the rest of this much less stressful. Every bank uses some form of fraud monitoring system. These systems are constantly comparing your current activity against your typical patterns. If you usually spend money in your hometown, shop at the same handful of stores, and rarely withdraw large amounts of cash, the system builds a kind of profile of what normal you looks like. When something breaks that pattern, even something completely innocent, the system can flag it for review. So what actually breaks the pattern? A larger purchase than usual is one common trigger. Maybe you finally bought that new recliner, or paid a contractor for work on the house, or sent a generous gift to a grandchild for their wedding. To you, that's a happy moment. To a fraud detection system, it's simply unusual, and unusual gets a second look. Traveling is another common one. If you take a trip to visit family in another state, or head out on a cruise, and suddenly your card is being used somewhere far from home, the system may not yet know that this is you enjoying your retirement rather than someone who stole your card number. There's a version of this that catches people specifically around the holidays. And it's worth mentioning because so many retirees run into it every single year. If you normally make modest, predictable purchases throughout the year, and then December arrives and you're suddenly buying gifts for grandchildren, hosting a family dinner, or shipping packages to relatives in another state, that burst of activity can look, from a computer's point of view, remarkably similar to someone else using your card in a spending spree. It has nothing to do with anything you did wrong. It's simply that generosity and fraud can sometimes produce very similar-looking patterns on paper, even though they couldn't be more different in real life. Another common trigger involves online shopping, especially if you're trying a new website or a new seller for the first time. Maybe someone recommended a small online shop for handmade gifts, or you're ordering a part for an appliance from a company you've never used before. Because that merchant has never appeared in your account history, and because online purchases carry a slightly higher fraud risk. In general, this can sometimes be enough to trigger a review, particularly if it's paired with anything else unusual happening around the same time. There's another trigger that catches a lot of people off guard, and it has nothing to do with spending at all. It's simply logging into your online banking from a new device, or a new location, or after a long time away from the app. If you got a new phone, or you're using a family member's computer to check your balance while visiting, that can sometimes be enough to raise a flag. None of this means you did anything wrong. It just means the system is being careful, sometimes overly careful, because from a technical standpoint, it can't yet tell the difference between you and someone who might be pretending to be you. Now here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. Has your bank ever sent you a message that made you stop and wonder if it was even real? That uncertainty is actually one of the trickiest parts of this whole situation, and we're going to spend some time on it, because knowing how to tell a real alert from a fake one is just as important as knowing why the alert happened in the first place. Let's walk through what typically happens once your account gets flagged, because the process itself follows a fairly predictable path, even though the details can vary somewhat from bank to bank. The first thing that usually happens is some kind of temporary restriction. This might mean your debit card gets declined at checkout. It might mean an online transfer you tried to make simply won't go through. In some cases, it might mean you can see your balance but can't move any money at all until things are sorted out. This can feel alarming, especially if you're standing at a checkout counter with a cart full of groceries. But try to remember that this restriction is temporary and it exists specifically because the bank is trying to prevent a loss, either to you or, frankly, to itself. After the restriction, the bank will typically try to reach you. This is where things get a little more complicated, because scammers have gotten remarkably good at mimicking these exact same messages. A real bank might contact you by text, by phone call, by email, or through a notification inside their official mobile app. They'll usually ask you to verify a recent transaction or confirm your identity before your full access is restored. The challenge is that a scammer might send you a nearly identical message, hoping you'll panic and click a link or read off a code without thinking it through. So how do you tell the difference? This is genuinely one of the most important things to understand. So let's slow down here. If you get a message claiming to be from your bank, the safest thing you can do is not respond directly to that message at all. Instead, pull out your physical debit or credit card, look at the number printed on the back, and call that number yourself. That number connects you to your bank's real customer service line, not whoever sent you the text or email. If the situation is real, the representative on that line will be able to see the flag on your account and walk you through verifying your identity. If the message was fake, you'll simply find out that your account is fine and there was nothing to worry about in the first place. It's worth pausing here to talk about why scammers target this exact moment so often. Think about it from their perspective. A fraud alert already puts you on edge. Your guard is naturally lowered because you're expecting your bank to reach out, and you're eager to resolve the problem quickly so you can get back to your day. Scammers know this, and some of them will deliberately send fake fraud alerts, not because your account is actually flagged, but specifically because they know a worried person is more likely to click a link or read out a code without thinking it through carefully. Recognizing that this tactic exists is often enough to make you pause the next time an urgent-sounding message arrives. And that pause is exactly what protects you. One more detail worth knowing: real bank alerts and phone calls generally won't pressure you to act within minutes or threaten immediate account closure if you don't respond right away. Genuine fraud departments understand that people are busy, driving, or simply unavailable, and they build a reasonable amount of time into their process. If a message or caller is pushing hard for an instant response, treats hesitation as suspicious, or discourages you from hanging up to call the number on your card yourself, that pressure itself is a signal worth paying attention to. This is a good moment to mention something your bank will never do, and it's worth remembering because it's one of the clearest signs of a scam. A real bank will never ask you to read them your full online banking password over the phone. They will never ask you to read them a one-time verification code that was just texted to your phone, because that code exists specifically to prove that a request is coming from you and only you. If someone calls claiming to be your bank and asks for that code, hang up and call the number on the back of your card instead. This single habit alone can prevent an enormous number of problems. Now, let's say the alert is genuinely real, and you've confirmed that by calling the number on your card. What happens during the actual verification process? Typically, the representative will ask you to confirm some basic identifying information, like your name, date of birth, and address, along with details about the specific transaction that triggered the flag. They might ask something like whether you made a particular purchase at a particular store on a particular day. If it was you simply confirm it, and in many cases, that's genuinely enough to lift the restriction. If it wasn't you, this is the moment where the bank begins the process of investigating unauthorized activity, which is a whole separate conversation. But it's worth knowing that this is exactly the kind of moment this monitoring system was designed to catch. It helps to have a few things ready before you call, just so the process moves as smoothly as possible. Keep your account number handy, along with a form of identification, and if you can, a general sense of your recent purchases over the last week or two. You don't need to remember every single transaction, just enough to speak confidently when they ask about anything unusual. Having this information ready is one of the simplest ways to avoid unnecessary delays. Let's talk about timing for a moment, because this is often the question people care about most. How long does this actually take? In many cases, once you've verified your identity, access is restored within the same day, sometimes within just a few hours. However, this really does vary by institution and by the specific circumstances involved. Some situations require additional review, particularly if the flagged transaction involves a wire transfer or a larger sum of money, and those cases can understandably take longer. If your bank gives you a specific timeline, it's reasonable to ask them to stick to it, and if that timeline passes without resolution, it's entirely appropriate to call back and ask for an update. Now here's something worth pausing on, because it's one of those small mistakes that quietly causes big delays. Many people, once they realize their card isn't working, try it again a few more times just to see if it was a fluke. Understandably so. But repeated attempts on a card that's already been flagged can sometimes reinforce the very pattern that triggered the flag in the first place, occasionally extending the review process rather than shortening it. If your card is declined and you suspect it's related to a security hold, it's usually better to stop trying that card and call your bank directly, rather than attempting the same transaction over and over. Another mistake that trips people up is ignoring the very first message from the bank because it looks like spam, or because they're simply busy that day. If you set that message aside and don't get back to it for several days, the restriction often just sits there unresolved during that whole time because the bank is waiting to hear from you before they lift it. If you get a notification about your account, even if you're not sure it's genuine, it's worth taking 5 minutes to call the number on your card just to check. That 5 minutes now can save you several frustrating days later. There's also a mistake that comes from the opposite direction, and it's worth mentioning because it happens more than people expect. Some folks, once they've been burned by a scam attempt in the past, become so cautious that they ignore every message from their bank, assuming all of them are fraudulent. That caution is understandable, and honestly, it's better to be too careful than not careful enough. But the solution isn't to ignore every message. The solution is simply to always verify through the number on your card rather than trusting the message itself. That way you get the best of both worlds, real caution against scammers, and a real response when your bank genuinely needs to hear from you. Let's shift for a moment to something a little more reassuring, because so far we've talked mostly about what can go wrong. Most account restrictions related to fraud monitoring are resolved without any lasting problem at all. The bank flags something, you confirm it was really you, and your full access returns. No money is lost, nothing is stolen, and life goes back to normal. The entire system, frustrating as it can feel in the moment, exists because it's protecting you from a much bigger headache: someone else spending your money without your knowledge. When you think about it that way, a brief inconvenience starts to feel like a fair trade for that kind of protection. That said, you do have rights in this situation, and it helps to know them, even in general terms. Banks are generally not permitted to hold your funds indefinitely, without giving you some kind of explanation or a path toward resolution. If a restriction drags on far longer than what you were told to expect, it's completely reasonable to ask to speak with a supervisor, or to ask specifically what additional information they need from you to move things along. You are not being difficult by asking these questions. You are simply making sure the process moves at the pace it's supposed to. It's worth mentioning here that specific timelines and protections can vary depending on your bank and the type of account involved. So if you ever want the precise details that apply to your situation, your bank's customer service team, or their published account agreement, is the most reliable place to get that information, rather than relying on general assumptions. It also helps to ask for something in writing once a restriction is lifted, even if it's just a brief email or a note in your account's message center confirming that the hold has been resolved. This isn't about distrust. It's simply a small habit that gives you something to point back to if the same issue happens to resurface, or if you ever need to explain what happened to a family member helping you manage your accounts. A short written confirmation takes almost no effort to request, and it can save a great deal of back and forth later if any question ever comes up again. If you do ever find yourself dealing with a restriction that seems to be dragging on without a clear reason, it's completely reasonable to ask the representative directly what specific step is holding things up. Sometimes it's still waiting on additional verification. Sometimes it's a manual review that simply takes a bit longer. And sometimes it's a mismatch in paperwork that can be cleared up in a single phone call once you know it's there. Asking a direct GOM question like this often moves things along faster than simply waiting and hoping. Now, in just a moment, I want to walk through a few practical habits that can actually reduce how often this happens to you in the first place. Because there are a few small things you can do that make your account activity look more predictable to these fraud systems, which in turn means fewer unexpected freezes. But before we get there, I want to circle back to something important, because it ties directly into everything we've just covered. If you're planning a trip, whether it's a weekend visiting the grandkids or a longer vacation somewhere new, many banks allow you to notify them ahead of time through their app or by calling customer service. This simple step lets the bank know that unusual spending in a new location is expected, which can significantly reduce the chance of your card being declined while you're away from home. It only takes a few minutes, and it can save you the headache of standing at a restaurant counter in an unfamiliar city, wondering why your card suddenly isn't working. Similarly, if you know you're about to make a larger purchase than usual, whether that's for a big appliance, a home repair, or a generous gift, it doesn't hurt to give your bank a heads up if their app or service allows for that kind of notification. Not every bank offers this feature, and not every large purchase will trigger a flag, but for anyone who has been through this before, a quick preventive step can offer real peace of mind. It's also worth thinking about how many cards and accounts you actually use day to day. Some people carry one primary card for nearly everything, while others spread their spending across 2 or 3 different cards depending on the purchase. There's no single right answer here, but it does help to know which card you use for which kind of purchase, simply because it makes it easier to recognize your own patterns and speak confidently if a bank ever asks you to confirm recent activity. If you're the kind of person who rarely uses a particular card and then suddenly uses it for something larger, that's precisely the kind of shift that can catch a fraud system's attention. So it helps to simply be aware of it rather than surprised by it. Another habit worth building is checking your account activity regularly, not out of worry, but simply as a routine. When you're familiar with your own typical spending patterns, you become much better at recognizing quickly whether an alert reflects something real or something worth questioning. It also means that if something truly unauthorized does happen, you're far more likely to catch it early, which generally makes any resolution process faster and smoother. Let's talk for a moment about something a little different, but closely related. Sometimes, the very same fraud protection systems that occasionally flag your legitimate purchases are also the protection systems, working quietly in the background to stop scammers from draining your account entirely. It can feel like an inconvenience when it flags you by mistake, but it's worth remembering that the same vigilance is what makes it much harder for someone else to walk away with your money. In a strange way, the annoyance you feel when your card gets declined at the grocery store is a small price for the protection that same system offers every single day, quietly, without you ever noticing. I want to bring this back to something practical and specific, because I know the whole point of watching a video like this is to feel ready if this situation ever happens to you. So let's walk through it one more time, simply and clearly, as if it were happening right now. Your card gets declined, or you get a text saying your account has been restricted. The first thing to do is stay calm, because in the vast majority of cases, your money is not gone. It's simply paused. The second thing to do is put down your phone if you received a text, and instead pick up your physical card and call the number printed on the back of it. The third thing to do is have your identification and account details ready, so the conversation moves quickly. And the fourth thing to do is answer their questions honestly and directly, confirming whether the flagged activity was really you. If everything checks out, which it usually does, your access typically returns within the same day, sometimes even within the hour. If the activity wasn't you, then you've just caught something important early, and the bank will guide you through the next steps of protecting your account, which often includes issuing you a new card number and reviewing any unauthorized charges. I'd love to hear from you on this one. Has your bank ever flagged a purchase or restricted your account unexpectedly? What happened, and how did you handle it? Sharing your experience in the comments could genuinely help another retiree recognize the same situation and respond with confidence instead of panic. Before we wrap up, if you found this helpful, please consider sharing it with a friend or family member who uses online banking, especially anyone who might feel a little less comfortable navigating these situations on their own. A short conversation now, or a simple shared video, can save someone a great deal of stress later. At the end of the day, this whole experience, unsettling as it feels in the moment, comes down to a system that's designed to look out for you. It isn't perfect, and it will occasionally flag something that turns out to be completely harmless. But that same imperfect caution is also what stands between your hard-earned savings and someone who might try to take advantage of them. Knowing how to respond, calmly and clearly, turns a stressful surprise into a 5 or 10-minute phone call, and then you're right back to using your own money exactly the way you intended. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this leaves you feeling a little more prepared and a little less worried the next time your phone buzzes with a message from your bank. From all of us here at Retirees Guide, take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.